Hello folks, and welcome back to the building of this Flair Fokker D7. Now the purpose of this video is to develop the fuselage a little bit more, and having already produced a nice smooth deck gluing on this thin plywood, it's time to cut some holes in it. And what I need to do is to cut the hole out for the cabin, the cockpit rather, to cut out a recess that'll house the machine guns, and also to cut out the area which will house the engine for real and also the dummy engines. So what I need to do is transfer the pattern for that from the plans onto here and get it cut out. Well, there are a number of ways of doing that, and with the plan, here it is, you get a nice template. There you go. You get a nice template for the cutout. Now, obviously, I could just plain cut that out, stick it onto the deck, and then cut directly through it. But of course, that'll ruin the plan. And I like to keep the plans, even if I never build them again. They're nice to look at, and somebody else might be able to use them. So I need to make a copy of this, and there are a number of ways of doing that. I could, of course, just photocopy it, scan it on a printer, and many printers that people have at home have a scanning facility, and that would work. I could pin through this, and that'll just put holes in it, but it'll be intact. Or I could use some of this carbon, if I just scan out a little bit. This is quite an old technique. It's used to transfer information when you're writing on a piece of paper to another piece. My grandfather used to use it when he was doing his betting slips back in the day. So I'm going to try it. It's quite old. I don't know if it's going to work actually, but we'll give it a go. So what I need to do is put the carbon on top, underneath here, and then obviously trying not to move it. What I'm going to do is draw around it, cut it out of the paper, and then use that as my template. First thing I need is a pencil, so I'll go and get one. Okay, pencil in hand, here we go. Of course I can rub the pencil out once I've done it. You need to be quite firm. I suppose it takes a little bit of a steady hand. You could use French curves if you were really unsure about your ability to follow a line. There we go. Draw it through and around. Now I have thought, because I have another one of these, a D7, Flair D7, and the interior is just simply got a plate on the bottom that the pilot is stuck down to. But I think with a little bit of clever thought, it would be possible to have a full figure in here and a full interior. That would make the project very interesting, of course, but we'll see. Anyway, let's see if this has worked. There you go, perfect. So now I'm going to cut that out, lay it onto the fuselage in the correct position, and then we'll start cutting it out. Let's get prepped. So there's the cutout, and you'll notice that I have a couple of pins, 3 pins in fact, that mark the rear position, but more importantly, these pins mark the edge of the cutout to house the machine guns. And what I'm going to do is I'll use those as a guide with the paper cutout. I'm going to sellotape it on just to hold it in position. Make sure I'm happy with the amount that's being shown both sides. I could measure it, but if it looks right, it is right. Quite happy with that. Yep. So I'm going to tape that on just to hold it in the right position, and then I'm going to draw around the outline and we'll cut it out. There we go. Okay, so all I need to do now is to draw around that. Obviously I can't draw around the sellotape, but it's on a straight bit, so it doesn't matter too much. And I can just gently push the pencil up against the paper to keep it in line, keep it in position. There we go. I can take those pins out now. Take this off. It's done its job. And that should be the cutout that I'm going to aim for when I do this. So just to double check, I will measure it now. I feel it's slightly too close this side. Centimetre. No, that's just shows your eyes can be wrong sometimes. That's okay. That needs to be cut out, and to do that I'm going to put a brand new blade onto a surgical knife, a Swan Mawson Swan. Cut that out, and then from that we'll have the position for the cutout for the machine guns. So let's get that blade sorted. Brand new blade. It always serves to do that when you're cutting something like this. And even though this wood's very thin, I'm not going to attempt to cut it with one hard pull of the knife. I'm going to score it and then come back and go over it again. It may appear to actually move things around slightly. Tell when I'm concentrating, I stop yabbering on. Well, we're getting there. This game isn't a race, it's all about just taking your time. If you're not sure, put it to one side. Have a bit of your favourite tipple, whatever that might be. Think about it and then come back. I often find the best solutions happen when I'm sitting in an armchair or lying in bed. And then you've just got to execute them. It's starting to cut through there now. Just be careful as it starts to break through. Yeah, it's starting to break through there, so you can hear it, can't you? Easier cutting across the grain than with the grain. Take your time so you don't slip. If you slip with this, you make a real mess of it. And it's starting to go break through. Right, I have to cut this piece here, which I haven't done yet, so I'm actually going to lay it flat. Might actually use a ruler for this bit, not that it matters greatly, because this is in the aperture where the guns are going to be, so Nearly there. It's getting there. There we go. There's one cockpit cut out. Now, that would have to be cut away if I'm going to make it a working cockpit, but that's fair enough. And I've lined it up nicely with the position for the machine guns themselves. So let's have a look at that and see how that's going to work out. One part of the job done. Now for the machine guns themselves, they sit in a recess. I've often seen the machine guns just glued on the top of the deck and they look silly. So I'm using these Williams Brothers machine gun kits. They actually came with the model as part of the deal when I bought it at a swap meet. You can tell how long ago these were purchased, £7.95. They're a bit more than that now. About double the price if you can get your hands on them. So these are produced in different scales. Once again, if you can get your hands on them. I don't even know if they're still available anymore, but there are lots out there in the sort of the ether if you shop around. So this part of the mechanism is going to be inside the decking area, and it's basically the barrel cooling system that sits just above the deck. So we're going to cut that out, and I'm going to do a separate video on making these up because it's a nice sort of sitting at a coffee table sort of job. And I'll do a separate video on them. But that gives a guideline. If we measure it, we're talking about 6.5 centimetres. I think the recess might actually be more than that, but there's no need to cut out more than's necessary. So I'm going to measure 6.5 centimetres up, cut out the recess, this part, and then we'll try one of these. I'll loosen this off the sprue and we'll try it and see if it works out. So 6.5 centimetres is the first measurement. And that's clearly, there's more there than that. I'm going to draw a straight line up here. Straight one up here. And then across. And I'm just going to check something before I hack this out, whether that is rounded or is left square. I suspect it's left square, but I'm going to check before I cut it out. Best check it now. So there we go, it's marked out. I've double checked it. I think that's about right. So I make a cut up here. I think it's got to be straight. Rather, the corners have got to be squared off rather than rounded. Do the same this side. There we go. Now, it's definitely the support is here, I believe. Well, it is, it's here. It doesn't need to be. So it's a little bit more to support it now. Managed to just get my hands inside there. There we go. There we go. Okay, and then if we put one of the guns in, that's basically where it'll sit. I'll put a support in there because I don't know why it went as far back as that. It goes there. I can cut this out, this part out. We'll do that now, why not? because I can put some cockpit detail in here. You're probably looking at the top of the baldy head now. Wait a minute. That's it. That's out. That's what we don't want that. There we go. Cockpit area cut out. I'll have access now to put the rudimentary panel, instrument panel there. Guns on like that. With all the mechanism that goes with it, I can do that. If this has to come out, which it may do, it's easily removed. This is supported here. I'll put a piece in there to support this. That bit done. Let's move on to the engine compartment. Right, what you can see I've done here, I've used pins to locate the edges of the engine compartment bay. Now, depends on the prototype you're doing, but some of the D7s had this whole area cut out, and the exhaust there was an exhaust that came out the side, but some of them didn't. And the model that I'm thinking about doing, which is a Dutch design, didn't seem to have that. If I change my mind, it's easily cut out, but for the time being, remove as little as you have to. It's easier to take off than it is to put on, shall we say. So I've lined up the edge using a pin, just prodding it through until I hit solid, but I can also sight through the front. Whoops, I can sight, knock stuff off down there. You can't see it probably, but I can. I can sight where the pins are. So I know that that's about right. I'm going to cut this compartment line out now. Take the pins out, they've done the job. I'm going to cut this side of the line, because I can always trim the surplus off. This is more straightforward than the cockpit because it's simply a straight line, no curve involved here. Dear me, it's sprung off there. I can easily glue that back on. Let's take this out. Gentle cut. In there. And then the cross cut, which should actually be easier, they generally are. I'm just going to do that freehand. There we go, that's that removed. That's fairly close, quite happy with that. Trim it off to the line. I can glue that down now. The next thing I have to do is get the engine and see if that fits in neatly, or do I have to cut more away here. I'll glue that. I'll do that now. Just needs a zap of super glue. See here. Come on, Mark. Give it a zap. Push it down. There we go. I'll get the engine. We'll see if it fits. Well, there you go. The engine fits. I'll probably remove this part here. Yeah, the engine fits. This is obviously the plastic bit that goes on the front. I had contemplated throwing this away altogether and replacing it with a built-up one. But actually I might use this. Why not? There's the outcut. Now, the supplied engine, yep, that's the engine. I'm not going to use. I'm going to build one up. But if we just roughly cut it out now, you can see how it would sort of work. I'm well butchering this. There you go. So that would go there. It would obviously have to have a cutout. I think I can make that work. Yeah? So what I'll do is I'll straighten this all up and trim it all out. Paint that with some fuel-proof black, so it hides a lot of what's going on in there. So what you can see past the dummy engine won't be too obtrusive. This, I think, yeah, I'm going to use that. I think I can bury, in fact I can bury the exhaust to go straight down and out the bottom, which makes for a less messy plane generally, and it also means that I can get more fabricated dummy detail on here. So there you go, that's how I've gone about cutting that out. It's not too troublesome. The most difficult part, I would probably say, is that you have to pin through it to find where the edges are. If you cut these out first and then try to bend it, you would be in a world of pain, I think. It would be much more difficult because it wouldn't contour to the shape properly. Doing it this way, you get it nicely attached, but you do have to be a little bit careful as you're cutting it out. I've got a bit surplus there and a bit surplus there, which I can trim off. I think that'll work really well. So thanks for looking in, folks. Please give it a thumbs up. Helps the algorithms and all that sort of junk. And subscribe if you haven't done so, and you can see the rest of this journey with this beautiful Flair kit. It's such a shame that they're no longer available. Fokker D7. Have fun, folks. Get creative.